Autism Mondays, Autism Mondays. Thought I'd do a wee drum solo in there just to liven it up. Okay, what I do, I need to like record it like a proper theme tune, just like swipe it in, but I can't be bothered. So you'll notice today that it's Autism Monday and I'm not in my normal humble abode because Nicola Sturgeon has eased the lockdown, so we've went and seen my old dears the day, so the sun's cracking, but I've still got to do my Monday video because I'm autistic, and then when I say I'm going to do something, I need to do it. So it's Monday and I'm still going to do this video. So before I go into today's video, I'm going to make you guys aware of what I do with my autism series. So every single Monday I release a video and I speak about my high functioning ASD. So there's a video about why I do these autism videos, so check that out, and then there's also another video going through my diagnosis as well, again check that out as well, and I've got videos speaking about my ADD, my Aspergers, my dyspraxia and stuff in that as well. So again, watch those videos first before you watch this, and then that can give you an idea of why I do these videos. Okay, so today I'm going to speak about myths, right? I want to debunk a few autism myths. I got my first kind of negative comment. It wasn't really negative, it was just kind of like somebody having a little bit of a disagreement. So I was raging, I was pacing back and forth, typing like a fucking maniac, taking about half an hour to give him a response. But I thought the comment was still quite valid, and I thought it gave me a good idea to try and debunk a few things, because I think people watch my videos and they don't really get what I'm doing. So I'm going to debunk a few myths for people. So number one is, why do I generalize my symptoms? So if you have the generalized symptoms that I have, does that mean that I'm on the autism spectrum? So a lot of people think that they watch my videos and they go, I do that, oh, I do that, that means I'm autistic. No, there is a difference, right? I'm not saying you don't have autism, right? What I'm saying is there's a difference in terms of the generalised symptoms, right? So, generalised symptoms, right? So, for example, my wife made up a blog that I didn't know about. Well, I kind of did, but I forgot all about it. Did it years and years and years and years and years ago, when I first got my diagnosis. And I was speaking about the frustrations when she'd speak to people and she'd go, oh, Paul does this, Paul does that. Explain Paul's autism to me. So she'd go, well, he does this and he does that, he does this and he does that. Oh, my husband does that. Oh, my husband does that. Oh, my partner does that. Does that mean he's autistic? No, and I'm going to tell you why. So, the reason I generalise my symptoms is, one, so people could relate, but number two, to show you the reasons why I suffer from these symptoms. So let's start off with a few generalised symptoms, okay? My wife in the blog goes on about saying, right, my husband takes a fucking age in the shower, Like, honestly, I do. I take like 30 to 40 minutes to have a shower. And then somebody would say to her, oh, my husband does that, he takes ages in the shower. I wonder if he's got autism. Well, here's the thing, you've got to find out why I do what I do and why he does what he does. So does that tie in to autism spectrum disorder? So the reason that I take ages to shower is a sensory thing. So I have a sensory issue where I don't like being wet. It is people on the spectrum will suffer from sensory issues. And again, it's like people go, I don't like being wet. How does it make you feel? Does it make you feel really, really angry and like you're about to have a meltdown? So for example, like, I've got to be wet when I'm meant to be wet. So if I'm in the bath, I'm in the shower, that's fine. If I go for a swim, that's fine. If I'm playing a water balloon fight and it's like, right, I know I'm going into this water balloon fight, I've got the right clothes on, that's fine, I could be wet. It's when I'm wet and I'm not meant to be wet. So if somebody spills something on me, I'll go mental, right? And people would say, I don't feel like it's having stuff spilt on them. I will rage and I will think about it for the next hour, and I'll just like, oh, I'll dry in. I'm like, nah, I can still feel it. I could still feel it. And I get so angry, and it's how that sensory turns into anger. So I have anger issues, and that is mostly due to my autism and the way that I kind of handle my stress. So there's two sides of it. So the thing about the washing side is I get distracted. So I get bored when I'm washing, because washing's boring. So my ADD kicks in. So I then get bored, and then I'm thinking about like playing in the Champions League final. I'm thinking about daydreaming. I'm a daydreamer, so I'll think about whatever I'm focused on at that time. I'll be up here, And probably if you wash me, I'm sitting staring at a wall and I'm somewhere else. So I'm fucking distracted. I've washed my armpit 25 times. And again, because I've got distracted. And then you've got the point where I've then taken that long. I then have to get dried. So I hate being wet that much that I have to be... I mean, when I mean bone dry, I mean bone dry. It takes me probably a good 5 minutes to get dry. 5 to maybe sometimes 10 minutes. If I just don't feel... I mean, the cracks in my toes, like little bits behind my ear, I've got to be bone dry and I can't put on my clothes until I'm completely bone dry, because I don't like wearing clothes, even if I'm just a slight bit wet. You're not meant to be wet in clothes. That's like what happens up here. So you think about it, there's one generalised thing, and it's about taking too long in the shower. Why? Because one, I've got ADD, so I get distracted, and two, I've got a sensory issue about being wet. Those things tie into autism spectrum disorder. And it's all about if that generalised thing that your husband or partner does, or you do, does that tie in to autism spectrum disorder? Is the reason that you do that a symptom of autism spectrum disorder? That's where it ties in. So I'll give you another example, right? My husband bumps into things all the time. Oh, my husband's so clumsy. I wonder if he's got autism. Well, the reason I bump into things is because I've got dyspraxia. So I'm not good around with space. You might have dyspraxia. So it's about finding out why he does those things. So he might be autistic, he might be on autism spectrum disorder, but it might just be because he's just not paying attention. And then you've got a thing where it's like, oh, my husband sometimes says fucking rude things, and somebody goes, oh, my husband does that as well. He's so rude. Once he's seen to Sandra last week, called her a fat whore. It's like, no, it's like when my wife says he says rude things, I say rude things that I don't mean necessarily to make offence. If I say something to make offence, that's not my autism, that's me being a prick. Right? That's me being nasty on purpose. The thing is with Aspie, so again you go, why does he say these rude things? One, you've got to think, look, did he mean to say that? Did he mean well by it? Did he mean any harm by it? If he didn't, then it might maybe be Asperger's. But you can have Asperger's and not have autism spectrum disorder, because it's this autism is a spectrum. So you have to have all of these things that tie in together. So you've then got to ask yourself, so my wife will go, he says some of this and he said this and he said that and he said that, but he didn't mean anything by it, and he didn't understand that what he said affected that person, and it was rude. My husband does that. They've then got to find out, did your husband say it just because he's an arsehole and he just doesn't care, and he's just, again, I meant to say that, I knew what I was saying and I just didn't care. I don't want to cause offence to people, it's just sometimes things come out and I don't mean bad by it, and I think I'm doing, again, watch the Asperger's video, times that I've been chucked out of houses and I've got in trouble due to my Asperger's. Watch that and you'll understand that I mean good by it most of the time. One of them I meant it, but not all. But I'd say 95% of the time, the stuff that comes out of my mouth is I don't mean it. And again, it's Asperger's. You don't understand the social connotations of what you're saying can affect that person. So generalised symptoms doesn't mean that necessarily that you have autism. You've just got to find out the reasons why you do what you do, and does that tie into the autism spectrum? So number 2. Autism and ASD, autism spectrum disorder, are two different things. So for example, somebody would try and say to me that they have autism, you have autism spectrum disorder, and you try and justify it. No, autism is autism spectrum disorder. Whether you still disagree with me, it is what it is. Autism spectrum disorder is the diagnosis of autism. That's what they call it. So when you're getting diagnosed for autism, they have to look at the spectrum and then see where you fit on that spectrum, and if you have certain things on that spectrum that can constitute to a spectrum disorder. Autism and autism spectrum disorder are the same thing. It's just that autism spectrum disorder is the diagnosis side of it, and that's how you would diagnose somebody, and that's what you would call the diagnosis. It's the same thing. It's just what doctors will call it autism spectrum disorder, because that's what it is. It's a spectrum disorder. 3, you can't live a normal life with autism. Here's the thing. It's an autism spectrum disorder. It depends where you sit on the spectrum. If you're low functioning, if you're high functioning, that's why there's a spectrum, and that's why it's low functioning and high functioning. It's split into 2, and it depends where you can function on. Right? Me and somebody else, we both have 3 things. Their ADD could be so bad that they can't focus at all. Their Asperger might be that bad that they cannot cope or function at all in a social environment. So it's just like they don't know what to say, they overthink everything. It's worse. You might actually find that they can live a normal life. It's just how Their life is adapted to make it normal. High functioning people like myself, we can live a normal life. It's just that we struggle daily to cope. And that's the thing, it's all about the coping mechanisms. I can take the coping mechanisms and cope. It's just that I struggle a lot and I have to deal with a lot of peer, and I get angry and I get anxious. But then a lot of people, this is what annoys me, right? A lot of people say, like, so what? The guy's comment, right, that I was pacing back and forwards with, he said, so what? There's people worse than yourself, you just have to deal with it. And I'm like, what? Like, you didn't sit there to somebody who's bipolar and you go, right, okay, well, come on, so you're not feeling good, you're feeling a bit depressed today. So what? Just fucking put a fucking nice face on and just deal with it. No, that's not the way it works. People deal with things differently. So I was talking about parenting. This guy says he's considered, so I don't fucking know if he does have a diagnosis, but he says he's considered. I don't know what that means. I'm considered to have autism spectrum disorder. So I don't know if that means he's been diagnosed. But it's a thing where you kind of go, so he deals better with it than me. And other things I might deal better than him with. So for example, I don't know his life, I don't know like his career, I don't know what he does as a job. He might not be able to do like a store manager's job. That might be too much for him. Parenting's easy for him because, again, his empathy levels are better than mine. His ADD, he might not have ADD, he might have something else on the spectrum, he might have OCD. Again, it's so variable and it depends on the severity of your autism. So people with autism can cope, like me, and have a normal life. It's what normal is. What's normal? I could get a mortgage, I could have a job, I could have kids, I could be married, I could still be social, but it's all the things that go on behind the scenes, and it's all the anxiety meltdowns and the anger outbursts and basically all the stuff that's going on up here that I have to deal with and cope with. So yes, people go through tougher lives, but just because they deal with it better than somebody else or they're worse than somebody else doesn't mean that you're still struggling. So it depends, right? It just depends. So you can live a normal life, depends on the severity of your autism and the coping mechanisms that you have. Number 4, autism is a very noticeable condition, and the signs are obvious. No, come on. People look at me all the time and go, okay, no way. Again, to my wife. My wife made that little blog up because she was tired of people going, no way, it's Paul autistic. No way, it's Paul autistic. I've known him for years. Again, I've met him so many times. He's not autistic. I've worked, again, the stereotype. I work with people that's autistic. He's not autistic. Again, spectrum. So autism can be quite noticeable. Again, if you have low functioning, you can kind of go, oh, maybe they're like on the spectrum, maybe they have autism, or like, oh, sometimes it could be obvious. Like on Datables, they make it really obvious. But there's times like when you meet people like me and other people that are high functioning, where it's just, we can hide it really well. And it's all about how you hide it. The thing is though, it'll manifest. If you spend enough time, so again, if you see a snapshot of me, I can hide it. Kind of, if I don't say much, if I don't look at you. But if you spend more and more time with me, like people that work with me, I always found it fascinating how people that worked with me, the longer they got to know me, were like, yeah, you have autism, because it manifests itself. And the more you see of somebody, so again, you've got to think about, is it obvious? Well, when people work with me long enough, it becomes obvious, and they go, okay, you definitely have autism. And again, it's that thing where, are you talking about, is it obvious in terms of having a snapshot of somebody, or is it spending time with them and it being obvious? It depends. I mean, if you spend enough time with an autistic person, the signs will become obvious because we can't hide it for too long. We get comfortable and we start to hide less and less things. So it isn't a thing where from a snapshot, is it obvious? No, because we can hide it. Over time, it becomes more obvious. Right, so the last one, number 5, right? So the 5th myth, which is a big one for me, is people with autism / Aspergers cannot be social or well liked. Everybody thinks that having Aspergers is a thing where you just can't be social. I'm really social on my terms. Depends, spectrum again. Again, you look at Undateables and that paints the picture of people that just cannot socialise really well. But I can socialise really well, but again, it's peeling it back. So the reason I can socialise really well is because I can control a conversation, because I'm so focused on what I want to do. I only want to speak about what I want to speak about, and I'm an observer. Remember, I'm a creepy watcher child, right? I can observe people, and then I just make like observations. I'm Roy Walker for catchphrase, right? Say what I see. That's what I do. Just say what you see, and that's what I do. My Asperger's kicks in. My Asperger's can be funny. So it just depends on like how your brain's wired. So for me, in a social aspect, I'm not good when I first meet you. I see my surroundings and then I need to be centre of attention, because if I control the conversation, then there's no variables there. I'm not going to have to deal with questions that I don't want to answer. I'm not going to have a conversation that I'm not comfortable in having, and I'm in control. So I can control conversations, so I become a centre of attention. And again, there is a time, I'm quite a well-liked guy. It's just the way I am. I come out with funny shit. Again, it's like, I'm just well-liked, you know what I mean? I'm a bit of a nutter, and I'll slag you, and I'm quite a good laugh. But it's that thing where it just depends. Again, see, for me, autism is, if I could say two words to kind of describe it, it'd be it depends, right? It depends. It depends on the severity of your autism and the severity of your conditions. So you can be social with Asperger's. It depends which group you're in. I might be in certain group. There's people out there that really dislike me because of the way that I am. Other people really like me. So it depends what group you're in. So you think about it, you could be really social. So you get a lot of people, again, for autism, a lot of times all about focus. Become focused on stuff. So again, I'm a mixing engineer, right? So I just recently went to like the control room, right? So it's like basically a mix hub for mixing engineers. It's just fucking mixing geek central, and I love it. And it's like the amount of knowledge, and it's just being able to just like, someone comes up in my head and I ask a question. So I'm really social in that place. And I could easily go for a night out with these guys, because all we do is speak about mixing. I'm in my comfort zone. But again, if you were to stick me at the school gates and I have to pick up Madison from school, then no, I don't want to speak to the mums. And they know I don't want to speak to them, because I'm like, what are you going to ask us? And like, I don't want to speak about that. And you're not going to be interested in my mixing stuff. You're not going to want to speak to me about my music or my work. And again, it's like in a work environment, I could be well liked as in my work environment, because I can speak about work, and I'm in that comfort, but I'm in that comfort zone. So people with Asperger's and autism can be social if they're in their comfort zone. You get somebody with autism or Asperger's speaking about something that they're interested in, looking dead social. Look at the guy on Undateables. It was like about James Bond and stuff like that. Speak about James Bond, like he'll speak to you all day. Social as anything. So no, it's the thing where there are people that are not social, right? That's a part of autism. But again, it depends. It depends. So there you go, guys. Right? There's 5 myths that have kind of annoyed me over the years. And yes, hopefully I've debunked those myths for you, and it's given you a little bit more insight into autism. And again, watch the other videos that I've got so you can understand my autism, right? My autism is my autism. Just because I do a certain thing doesn't mean you're autistic. But if you do find you watch my videos and you're like, I do this, but I also do that, and I do that, and I do that, and you think about it and go, but like, the reason I do that could actually be stemmed to ADD. Maybe the reason I do that is, I might have Asperger's. Go see a doctor, and then from there, if they think you might be on the spectrum, they'll stick you through group sessions. You'll go see a therapist. I had 12 or 13 one-to-ones, and then from there they'll diagnose you if you're on the spectrum. There's nothing wrong going to the doctors to see if you're on the spectrum. I just don't want people to think that I do these generalised videos like that guy's comment, and kind of be like, everybody's going to think they have autism, and by generalising it, it's like people are just going to sit there and go, well, I do that and I do that, so what makes it different for you? And you have an excuse. I mean, that's not an excuse, it's just the reason I do that is it's a symptom of ASD, and that's the way it works. So thanks again for watching, guys. Again, stay tuned. I don't know what I'm going to do next week. I think I might do something again a little bit more light-hearted next week. But again, comment down below. Tell me what you want me to do videos about. If you're interested about parts of my life, if you're interested to know more about stuff about ASD and autism, let me know in the comments down below. So, thanks again for watching. Like and subscribe. I'm very close to 400 subscribers, so I do think I'm going to get to the 500 before October. I'm hoping maybe end of July, to be fair. Then I'm halfway there to maybe get to 1,000. Start making some money. Here comes money. Make like £20 a week. Like, yes. Right, but that's not what I do these videos for anyway. But it would be nice to earn some money. So, like, subscribe, and I'll see you again next week. And I hope you enjoyed the scenery of Madison's spare room with mum and dad's as well. I've not got their permission to use the room, but fucking whatever, right? See you soon.